Hey guys, this is Dinosaur Drawer, and this is the second part on how to draw the Jurassic Park Spinosaurus. So yeah, I'm really sorry for the fact that in the first part I took so much time drawing in his head. I'm really sorry. But yeah, let's actually continue, and maybe this will turn out to be a very good drawing. So I'm grabbing my 0.5 millimeter point mechanical pencil. It's an HB pencil again. So the reason why I keep saying this is actually because I get a lot of questions about what kind of pencils that I use and what kind of paper I use, but the paper I'm not really sure of. Maybe you can see it right here. It's 135 GM something. I'm not sure what it means. I used to know what it means, but I kind of forgot. But yeah, what I'm gonna do right now is just refining this sketch that we already have. So for example, he has a lot of bumps on his neck and on his on the actual spine. So we'll kind of draw those in, and I forgot to. Alright, so we will kind of draw those in. Bump over here, small one over here, and a couple more of them. And you don't really have to be too accurate with those. It's just that it will look better if you have a couple of them. And on this part, it is actually best if you do try and keep them as accurate as you can. So it's just something like this. So yeah, what I'm paying attention to right now is that the farther you go up, the more room you have between every kind of bump. And that's actually what I'm trying to pay attention to right now. And then when you go down, the distance between them actually gets smaller again until you get those really small kind of shapes like that again. So I might actually refine that later on a little bit more, but I'm not gonna do it right now, because right now I want to focus on his mouth actually. So for his mouth, it's just the shape. I didn't get the shape quite right. It's more shaped like this. And I'm talking about his jaw right now. And then from over here, kind of goes like this, and a little thing like over here. And then it almost goes straight out. And then that end part. So that's a little bit more accurate. So now that I have most of it pretty accurate, let's just get his foot in really quick, and then we can move on to darkening most of the drawing. So over here we have the knuckle of his toe, and then his toe is kind of curved like this, and his nail will be over there. A little sharper. And then the second one will be right there. Then we have a little bit of a heel over there. It doesn't quite attach to this knuckle, but it is kind of dark over here. And yeah, this is actually a little bit different. It's a little bit shorter, so I made a mistake of darkening it in too fast. So we have a small line like this, and then we have something like this, and then it kind of curves back, and we have a heel right there, and you can kind of see his dew claw. And also over here we have the dew claw as well, kind of right there. So the angle that the foot is in isn't completely accurate, but we will go with it anyways because it looks pretty cool. Alright, so now we have to pay attention to this muscle over here. This will be very muscular. So it kind of looks like that. Alright, so now we basically did all the points of accuracy, and now we can darken in everything. So I'll be back when I did that. Okay guys, so I'm back and I did most of the darker lines, and I kind of really messed up this foot. So make sure that if it's right, don't erase it ever again. I just thought that it was a little bit too small, but turned out that it was just the right size because I made this foot a little bit too short. So if I would make this one longer, then it would touch the ground. And I was really messing around with that a lot. So yeah, it's now time to actually get in his eye. So I'm gonna try to zoom in a little bit. Alright, and his eye would be located right about over here. And his eye is not very large. And then he has a couple of highlights in them over there, and I'm gonna make another highlight over there. And now I want this area to be very dark in general. So I'm gonna create a lot of shadow over here around his eye. There are a couple of wrinkles everywhere around his eye as well. So I'm just going to make this area very dark. And then he has an indentation in his skull over here. Kind of goes like this. And one over here. Goes a little bit like this. And I'll just try and get a little bit of shadow in everywhere. And actually, we have to refine the shape of his skull quite a bit. I mean, for this is not accurate to the reference that I'm using. And also we can get in his teeth already. So right here he has a couple of like 5 very long teeth that are kind of pointing inwards. And then one smaller one over here. And then he has a couple small ones that go like this. and then it just kind of goes like this, and it gets smaller eventually, so kind of like that. And the same for over here, a couple of teeth going inwards, getting smaller, and then getting really large again at some point. And he also has a bit of his tongue that we can actually see. Very short little tongue. Not going to put too much detail in it. Just leave a couple of bits of highlights. Make it a little bit darker, maybe something like this. Alright, and now for his bottom jaw we have a lot of actual lines going like this, and a lot of shadow over here as well. So let's actually zoom out. So what you just saw might look very rough. It actually is very rough, but the drawing overall will kind of look a little bit better. A little bit of shadow on his lower jaw over there. Alright, and now for his upper jaw, let's just get a little bit of shadow everywhere. A bit over here as well. And a bit over here. This part is actually very dark in the reference image. And we have a couple of lines that actually go like this. Top of his skull is also very dark. This actually is a little bit higher up. And a lot darker. Then we have his eyebrow over here, which also has a lot more shadow going on actually. And a couple more bumps. And then just for this part we just want to kind of fade it in a little bit, because the line that separates the jaws from each other isn't very clear. We also want a little bit of a tone inside of these holes. Alright, so now he has a couple of lines from his throat which actually go like this, and they kind of have a little bit of an angle on them, and they kind of fade away later on, I guess, like this. And we have a line like this over here. Not a very clear one, but I drew it very exaggerated. And a couple of lines which aren't very clear either on his neck. And then we have a couple of these scales on his neck as well. They are actually pretty dark, and it's just filled with these kind of scales on his neck. I'm really not happy with the way his head looks actually. So I'm just trying to refine it just a tiny little bit by going over it, making it a little bit darker at some points of the drawing. And it's not focusing, I'm really sorry. And this also is supposed to have a little bit of a tone. I do want to have a little bit more shadow at these parts. And also over here. I want his nose to be a little bit better visible. And this part has the same kind of lines that you see on his upper jaw. And then we just continue on with those skulls. And we could go in and give it a little bit more of a tone. A couple more lines coming in. And I'm just trying to kind of randomize these lines a little bit so they don't look as manufactured, a little bit more natural. And again, just continue on with these scales. Try and not make it too dark until we are at his fin over there. Yeah, his head might be a little bit too dark, but that's okay for now. Just darkening some areas. So it's not going to look a lot like the Crash McCreary Spinosaurus, I guess. It's more going to look a little bit more like my own kind of representation of it. And then we just draw in kind of something like this. So what we're doing is we're drawing shadow on one side, but not on the other side. So you have a lot of those spiny things going out of his the back of his, well, out of his spine, and it actually looks like this. But we're not drawing the shadow on this side because the sun will come from that side. We're actually drawing the shadow on one side of them. That way it will give it kind of an interesting look. So as you can see, they are getting closer to each other again at the end. And we can just continue on doing those kind of dark skulls. And try and make this more precise as well. More a bit like this. and I didn't even notice it, but we're already at 20 minutes. Alright, so now we have like a tone difference over here. It goes kind of like this. This part is darker than this part, and then we have something like a huge wrinkle underneath his belly. And that will be quite dark. So this part will be quite dark, and this part will be quite light. And we have a lot of those scales going on over here. And maybe we can even get a couple of darker scales in at his head, because his head just looks really blank, if you ask me. So we're just gonna kind of make it our own version of the Jurassic Park T-Rex. Not the T-Rex, sorry. The Spinosaurus, of course. Just a couple of lines. So that makes his head look a little bit more detailed. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of a tone at some places. And there are a couple of lines actually going like this. One more line over here. And then we can see a couple of lines from over here. It kind of gives it a cool effect. Alright, so now this part is just covered in a bunch of lines, and a lot of randomness. Then we have a line like this, a line like that, and this actually goes all the way until over there. We could draw in a little bit of shadow for his back, just a little bit, and that's gonna be all. And then just keep on drawing a couple of those lines, maybe a couple of those lines as well. And maybe this part could be a little bit lighter at the middle. Might have actually made it a little bit too dark. Just completely kind of erased that unnecessary line right there, to put in a couple of lines like that. Alright, and this part will have to be very dark. Just putting in a little bit of shadow at some places. And a couple of those scales which actually create some sometimes at some places it looks like they are in a certain pattern, but actually they're not. Well, at least I don't draw them in a certain pattern. There are a couple of lines going through here, and then just keep on adding those lines, which will make it look a little bit random. And we can always later on put in those scales if we want to. Alright, so here I'm just putting in a couple of those. I'm not sure what to call them anymore. Hatch cross lines or something like that. And I'm gonna do the same kind of over here, but these need to be at an angle. And then I'm just adding some random lines over there. So I'm not really happy with the way that it looks right now, but we will kind of have to see what it will become when it is finished. Because mostly when your drawings are finished they look a little bit better. I just try to make it look too much like the original, and that kind of made me fail horribly. Because sometimes I do get them very accurate, but most of the times I can't get them as accurate as I would like them to be. So it's kind of a shame. I'm just making this a little bit darker because I already failed trying to get it the same as the original, so sometimes it's just best to do the things that you know work for you. And I kind of wish that I had done that before I started drawing this video. Alright. Now we want to kind of get a tone into it. The way we are going to do that is by basically getting the tone at the places where there is no shadow yet. So these places could be the places where you might get shadow in. But this isn't actually, well, yeah, you could call it shadow, but this actually isn't real shadow. It's just I'm just putting the right tone into the rest of the drawing. between we can just put down those curved lines like this. So we kind of still have a tone into the drawing, I mean into that part, but it's not as dark. You still have a lot of light. Alright, and another thing that I really don't like about this drawing is that it's going to take me at least 3 parts to make this tutorial. So yeah, we will see how the drawing turns out. I'm not quite too happy about it myself yet, but it might become a good drawing, we never know. So if you liked the video, leave a like, comment below what you think about the drawing and the video in general, and don't forget to subscribe. So this was Time to Draw, and goodbye.